Hey guys, it's me, Hannah Payne, and I'm back with another really long video called The Wizard of Oz. And I'm about to read you the fifth chapter, where Dorothy, Toto, and the Scarecrow continue their journey to see the wonderful Oz. So let's head on down to the fifth chapter. Chapter 5. The Rescue of the Tin Woodman. When Dorothy woke up, she was startled by a loud groan coming from the trees. "What was that?" she asked timidly. "I don't know. Let's go see," said the Scarecrow. Just then, another groan reached their ears. The sound seemed to come from behind them. They turned and walked through the forest. Dorothy discovered something shining in a ray of sunshine that fell between the trees. She ran to the place and then stopped short with a little cry of surprise. One of the big trees had been partly chopped through, and standing beside it with an axe lifted in his hands was a man made entirely of tin. His head, arms, and legs were joined to his body, but he stood perfectly motionless. Dorothy looked at him in amazement, and so did the Scarecrow, while Toto barked sharply. "Did you just groan?" asked Dorothy. "Yes," the Tin Woodman. "Yes," answered the Tin Woodman. "Sorry. I did. I've been growing for more than a year, and no one has ever heard me before or come to help me." "What can I do for you?" she inquired softly. "Get an oil can and oil my joints," he answered. "They're rusted so badly that I cannot move them at all. Sorry. If I am well oiled, I shall soon be all right again. You will find an oil can on the shelf in my cottage." Dorothy at once ran back to the cottage and found the oil can, and then returned and asked anxiously, "Where do I reply it?" "Oil my neck first," said the woodsman. His neck was so rusted that the Scarecrow had to hold his head slowly to turn it from one side to another so that the Tin Woodman wouldn't hurt himself. "Now oil my joints in my arms," he said, and Dorothy oiled them, and the Scarecrow bent them carefully until they were quite free from rust and as good as new. The Tin Woodman gave a sigh of satisfaction and lowered his axe, which he leaned against the tree. "Oh, that feels good," he said with a sigh of relief. "I've been holding up that axe for more than a year. Then it took up then a year. Sorry. Now if you will oil the joints of my legs, I shall be all right once more." So they oiled So they oiled his legs until he could move them freely, and he thanked them again and again for his release. "You have certainly saved my life. Did you happen to be here?" he asked. "We're on our way to see the Emerald City. We're on our way to the Emerald City to see the Great Oz," Dorothy answered. "Why do you wish to see Oz?" he asked. I want him to send me back to Kansas, and the Scarecrow wants him to put a few brains into his head," she replied. The Tin Woodman felt quiet for a minute, as if in deep thought. He said to Dorothy, Do you suppose Oz could give me a heart? If you will allow me to join your party, I will also go to the Emerald City and ask Oz to help me," he said. Dorothy and Scarecrow heartily agreed. The Tin Woodman picked up his axe, and they all made their way through the trees until they found the yellow brick road again. Dorothy had carried the oil can in her basket in case the Tin Woodman got rested again. It was a good thing they had the Tin Woodman with them. Soon after, they resumed their journey, and they came across trees and branches so thick that it made it impossible for them to pass through. But the Tin Woodman took up his axe and chopped at the trees until he made a clear path for them. As they continued walking, the Tin Woodman began to tell them his story. I was born to a woodcutter. I fell in love with one of the Munchkin girls. I wanted to marry her, but she lived with an old woman who didn't want her to marry and leave. So the old woman went to the Wicked Witch of the East and asked her to prevent the marriage. The witch enchanted my axe. My axe started sleeping while I was chopping wood, and it cut my body parts one by one. I got them replaced from a tinsmith. Soon my entire body was made of tin. But alas, I now had no heart. I lost all my love for the Munchkin girl, and did not care whether I married her or not. The one thing that bothered me was the joint skin rested. That's why I kept an oil can on the shelf in the cottage, and made sure I oiled my joints regularly. But one day I forgot to do so. On that very day I was caught in a rainstorm. I rested immediately. And that was how I stood until you found me. I want to ask Oz for a heart. If he gives me one, I will come back and marry the Munchkin girl. Both Dorothy and the Scarecrow have been greatly interested in the story of the Tin Woodman, and now they knew why he was so anxious to get a new heart. What worried Dorothy most was that what worried Dorothy most was that the bread was nearly gone, and another meal for her. And Toto would empty the basket. Neither the Tin Man nor Scarecrow ever ate anything, but she and Toto were not made of tin or straw and could not live unless they were fed. What do you think will happen next? We'll find out soon. And we'll find out soon in the 6th chapter of The Wizard of Oz. And I'll see you tomorrow.